Well, the Liberal government under Mark Carney does not technically have a majority, but it being so close, they'll get the NDP or the Bloc Québécois to give them the support they need. But there are tools available to opposition MPs, obviously question period being one of them. But an important one is private members' bills. It's just what it sounds like. Any MP in Parliament has the right to put forward a proposed law. Now, not all of them get to the voting stage, and it is actually rare that they get passed, but occasionally a private member's bill captures the spirit of the moment, and the government decides to adopt the bill, either by absorbing it into other legislation or just saying, hey, that's a good idea, we're going to vote for the private member's bill, or we'll turn it into a government bill. I'd like to bring your attention to a private member's bill introduced by a Conservative MP from Alberta. It's called Bill C-243, an act to amend the Corrections and Conditional Release Act. It's about parole review, and it's a very simple bill. And because it's simple, I think it's got a chance that the government will say, well, this is not a partisan thing. I think we ought to adopt it. Joining us now to talk about it is the sponsor of this bill, Kerry Diotte, the Member of Parliament from Edmonton, Griesbach, who joins us now from Parliament. Kerry, thanks very much for coming on the show.
Thanks for having me, Ezra. It's, I think it's a very common sense bill. Basically, in a nutshell, what it does is this. Can you imagine, first of all, if you had the misfortune to have a loved one murdered, and then when somebody has finished their sentence, the mandatory part of their sentence, you have to go and face them year after year after year, as they try to make a case to say, "Oh, I'm all good now. Let me out." So this is the situation which will happen with this bill if it is passed. It would mean essentially that convicted murderers cannot keep coming before a board year after year after year, but they would only get a shot once every 5 years, and it basically it recognizes the severe trauma that people must go through. Can you imagine? For instance, if you had a son or daughter murdered and you had to sit across from that monster every year and say, no, you should not be getting out. So as you mentioned, it is a private member's bill, but I think it does have a chance of passing because, hey, everybody has hearts go out to people who've suffered a loss through a crime like murder. And, I really do think that we can twist some arms and tug at hearts and get this passed. One of the things that I wanted to give a shout out to my fellow conservative MP, Michael Cooper, because essentially what happened is he tried to get this bill passed through the Senate a couple of years back. Unfortunately, didn't make it through, and it was basically. He was doing it for a couple in sort of, he wanted to give a shout out to a couple that you remember way back in 2012, there was a high profile crime where a couple of, there was a security guard that went rogue on the University of Alberta campus, and he killed 3 of his fellow security guards, a guy named Baumgartner, and he was found guilty of that crime. Well, Michael Cooper sort of dedicated his attempt to pass this bill to the parents, Mike and Diane Ilisic, the parents of one of the victims of that crime. So I'm going to do the same because I think that they had high hopes that it might get through the Senate, but it didn't make it. So second time lucky with this, and I think it's dedicated to all the people who have suffered at the hands of lost loved ones to cold-hearted murderers.
Yeah, I've read the bill. It's fairly simple, so there's not a lot of complex reasons to be against it. You're either for it or against it. If I were to make the case to a liberal to try and convince a liberal to support it, I'd say, look, they have a first kick at the can. This only kicks in if they're rejected on the first instance by the parole board. Then they have to wait 5 years instead of pestering every year. So it does give the benefit of the doubt to the murderer for that first application. And after that, it just says you've got to come back every 5 years. You can't, if you're rejected once, you can't make this an annual festival of, laughing at the victim's family. So it is limited. It does give the murderer a good faith first chance. This is only for those who have already been found by the parole board to be too nasty, too dangerous, too, abusive. So I think this is quite a limited bill. It's almost a technical amendment. Have you had any feedback from the other side of Parliament? I see this was introduced on September 22nd. I'm not sure how attentive government MPs are to a private member's bill from the opposition. Have you had any conversations with non-conservatives? Has anyone on the other side of the aisle expressed any interest?
Actually, they have not. So that's partially a good sign, I think. We'll be doing our best to lobby them and say, look, this is good for everybody. This is, you talk, the Liberals always talk about it, their conversation about toughening up bail. They always talk a good game. And, even on our party's push for a jail, not bail for repeat violent offenders, saying, hey, just wait. We've got a bill in the, we're not going to rush to support that, which they didn't, as you recall, just the other day. They did not. They voted down that bill that would have been tougher on bail, but they don't deliver. So this is a chance. Hey, we've done the bill for you. Here it is, and have some compassion. I just beg that they will have some compassion. We've got a lot of people out there who have suffered through these hearings, and I just hope that the other parties will find it in their hearts to side with the victims for a change.
Well, Kerry, we wish you good luck with it. And it is still early days. The bill was just introduced on September 22nd. And I think there's a flicker of a chance. I mean, Mark Carney, I think, is going to let us down in so many ways, but he has implied from time to time that he's different from Justin Trudeau. I think this is such an easy one for him to support. It is only dealing with a very limited set of people, convicted first and second degree murderers who have already failed an application for parole. So the number of cases to which this would apply is quite low. An easy win for the Liberals, but maybe they're just too obstinate. We'll find out. Thanks for keeping in touch with us. What's your website if people want to keep an eye on the work you're doing in Parliament? What's the best place for people to go?
Reach me at kerrydiotte.com. That's KerryDiotte.com. And listen, Ezra, I really appreciate you taking an interest in this. And I think many victims will thank you for your interest as well.
Well, it's our pleasure. We're interested in the story, and you're the one who's put it on paper and submitted it as a private member's bill. So, of course, credit goes to you and the families who have the courage to stand up. I can imagine the pain that they've already been through. We'll keep in touch, Kerry. Thanks very much.
Thank you.
All right, there he is, Kerry Diotte, the Member of Parliament from Edmonton, Griesbach.